Alright, quite a bit of a delay today. Very unfortunate. I simply lost track of time. So I mentioned in my going live tweet that I wasn't certain who I would be drawing today. But I figured I may as well go in order of the tarot, making the next one to come up the magician. I did actually have a direct volunteer for just go start things are on. That's readable. I did take the frame from the first one I do so that I can have them all standard. So yes, Laotian Ash. Never actually heard him pronounce his own name, just assuming it's Laotian instead of Laotian. Something a bit less fanciful. Probably only the facing, given that the magician himself is fairly stock standard facing forward. Very nice departure from the unbelievable complexity that was the Fool's portion. I'll probably want to use the lyre as the item that held in the two-sided. Very interestingly, is that the items on the table are the minor arcana. Pentacles, cups, swords, and wand. You are unfamiliar with how the tarot deck works properly. It's not just the major arcana that are named, it's also the minor arcana that function similarly to a standard deck of cards does. But first things first, we put a tablet in front of, off to the side. I was also in such a rush to set up that I never actually checked whether the tablet was working properly. Very nasty habit, being disagreed. Looks like everything's in working order. Hello, Mitz. Good morning to you. It is mid-afternoon for me. Thank you for the bit. So first thing I'm going to do, put in all of the geometric blocking items so this table is get a good appropriate layers. Oh, this one, table. So I don't believe you were here during my previous stream, but I have added sound effects and various other things, so certain actions are now a bit more grandiose than they were before, such as that donation sound. I stuck with the default donations. Seems fairly ingrained as a part of Twitch culture. I didn't want to rock the boat too much. But I do have a fair few other actions that are a bit more custom. Wonder. I think this is actually a point where I can actually just use perfect straight lines. 50. Trying to recall what else I changed or what else I have more custom that's easily doable. I could just test widgets so that I can show you it more easily. Let's see. Test widgets. Play the follow sound effect.
Please come in.
Fairly simple. Just a nice little voice clip welcoming sides stop by. Fairly certain that. Yes, I realized after it was brought to my attention that I actually had disabled a vast majority of... Okay, I wasn't certain. Because I've not streamed in a fair few days at this point, so... Right. I'm trying to remember what exactly it was that did that. Some form of notification. A follow. Might have been a subscription? As, Lucy subscribed most recent. Was 5 days ago? That might have been around the right time? Not entirely sure. My memory is not the best, fortunately. I've also still not decided on which tarot to draw you as. I'll have to put some thought into that. See. Perhaps just take a look now. See if I can't figure something out. Let's see, so the ones that are claimed right now are Magician. Yeah, Magician, Fool, Temperance, Chariot, Strength, Tower. I think that's it. The rest of them are all still open. Fairly certain. I closed the post where everyone was listing what they wanted. I'm fairly certain I've gotten them all at this point. Any of the rest of them. I don't actually have the meanings up right now, so I wouldn't be able to tell you what each of them are offhand. Justice, perhaps? Justice seems like something that bonks. Take a look at the Arcana. A judgment. Reflection, reckoning, and awakening, or lack of self-awareness, doubt, and self-loathing is judgment. See if there's anything fully descriptive. Card depicts one... Ooh. This card depicts what one would imagine the Last Judgment would be, in the various forms that takes in many mythologies. The image in the Judgment card shows women, men, and children who are rising from the grave to respond to Gabriel's trumpet call. Their outstretched arms symbolize that they are ready to be judged by the universe. They're about to meet their creator, their actions weighed, and find out where they will spend the remainder of eternity, in heaven or in hell. The massive tidal wave in the background signify that judgment is unavoidable, and that this judgment will be final. Does that sound good? Judgment? Or, no, I looked at judgment instead of justice. They both begin with J and mean relatively the same thing. I can get confused. But also take a look at justice. Let's see, justice's keywords are karma, consequence, accountability, law, truth, honesty, integrity, cause, and effect. Symbol of truth, fairness, and law. Yeah, it's practically the same thing, but one is apocalyptic and the other one is more human, I suppose. Well, when it comes time to it, I'll see which one the coin head lands on. But as for where I left off, it is still time for Laosi. Going to do a bit of checking, right? Copy and paste it. Should be shrunk down a bit. Further back now. No, this isn't how it works at all. Fine. Perfect. Most of this is going to be covered in decoration. If I decide to do. Oh, that's a relative approximation of where it should. Just put all of these flowers and nonsense front. Actually, let's see. What kind of brush can I do? I'd like to tear it down the center. Is there actually no vines? That would be in vegetation. No vines. That's interesting. Foliage, then? That'll do. Very light green. The way to give it a back. When I was working with the roses, there was a way to give them outlines. Oh. Unfortunate. Okay, I should actually put that on its own layer, shouldn't I? erase whatever gets outside. Actually, there's a way that I can do this properly. Can't draw outside of the line. Probably should have included the text box. I'll just erase that main. It'll be a lot easier to erase this. Actually, if I bring the frame onto the top layer, it also works extremely well. I have to be less careful. Ooh. I have to be less careful about erasing now. Don't have to go right up to the edge of the frame. My old habits when I was just using occasion that popped up for a split second there. I think I've ever seen that before. Yes, I did start a little bit late today, around 20 minutes late. I didn't actually have to do today. Fairly free. I didn't actually have any of the scheduled activities that I do before I stream. Simply just forgot to check the time. And then I can just dot a couple of flowers in. Roses. It seems like only more complicated ones like roses can get special decoration to them. Multiple layers of That's the wrong button. Up this brush a little bit. The density lower, I only want to create a single rose. Particle sizes, here we are. Rose. Probably a bit too big, actually. Shrink it down a little. Going to match the number of roses as well. Maybe some symbolism behind that. There tends to be when it comes to tarot. And there are a couple of lilies. Wow. On the same side. For a side view. Seems like that may be the closest I get. Going a new layer. just for the lily. This one is a master copy. Rotate and move. Very neat. Lilies are there. Like it's just 3. Although that could also be a lily there, but it looks like it's just 1, 2, and 3. I'll copy it thrice. These can be moved and resized. A flip would be in order. Hardly done any drawing. All been messing with the presets that exist within Clip Studio. Shows that it's art in its own way. Bring foliage up in front for just a second. Copy them. Everything's on foliage. Pesky little protrusion. We'll have to a bit further though. Not the right color. And it can be on foliage. Why is that? Oh, because it's on the eraser. Not terribly good at pink. Well, I suppose. Handles it by obscuring it completely. Suppose I could just completely cover that section. Not the most elegant solution, fortunately. Well then, now that all of the dressing is done, get the star of the attraction. Or it is important to actually properly focal point of this. So then, straightforward. First off, new layer. It'll just be a basic sketch. Okay, that's ahead. Fine with that for now. I'm drawing in green for whatever reason. a fairly thin, too thin. Going to be as geometric as possible. Fairly thin ways. Swoop. According to the card, should be around height of the table. I'm on track there. Arm is slightly right. So gesturing forwards, I think, is how it's supposed to align. The arm should get wider then, slightly, towards the focal point drawing. Finger. Fist. Other arm holding aloft the two-headed king. Wondering what the symbolism behind the candle. Must have something to do with conditioning. Grasping, four fingers, thumb. I'm also wondering how true to tarot I want to stick as well. For instance, do I keep the minor arcana on the table, or do I fill it with Laotian's own paraphernalia? He has a sword, lyre, the hat. Which could fill this table fairly well. I think I will have him holding the double-ended candle. Keep that. Laotian has some very ornate clothing that is going to be unfortunately difficult to draw. Preparing for it to be incredibly taxing. Very useful reference, so that's good, at the very least. Suppose I'll try and remain accurate with drawings I can have. I mean, that makes legs. Perhaps I Most of this will be covered in ornate clothing, so it's not a particularly... Sorry to get 100 back. Oh. I've actually been reading is it a reference book for art? Men have legs that are, or are drawn to have legs that are far closer together than women. There should not be as wide of a gap in the center. Just do triangle, work legs out. See, most of the legs are going to be behind the table, so I don't have to bother about it too much. Say feet are... No, feet are further down than that. I don't know what to do. About right. Notifications popping up on the top. That down. Very distracting. Basic sketch done. This background doesn't actually do much. Obscured. Below this point, practically were covered by the foliage. Really good for the HP. Nothing else is obscured at this point. I'll put the unity above the head last. And then for those, start on that. Get some more solid line work. So then, sketch can go semi-transparent, flashing everything I see. I suppose this is actually just going to be a slightly more detailed sketch. I'll change it to represent that. Those just body proportions. Very fortunate, I can just draw reference fairly verbatim. As the magician is standing how Vtubers stand normally anyway. Flat forwards. I suppose hair is a fairly important feature here. see. The other day I made okonomiyaki once again. Turned out fairly well. Better than it did the first time. Definitely something that gets a lot easier with practice. That is fairly obscured. Did a couple of things different. Well, because the recipe that I was following wasn't entirely clear on some steps and left a little bit of room for interpretation. Specifically the point on how fine the cabbage should be chopped. The first time I attempted it, I simply chopped it into lines. But this time I did a fine chop. Passed over it one extra time. Used it a bit smaller. Made the shape of the pancakes, or not the pancakes, but the okonomiyaki, a lot more like pancakes. Very much fried or fried. Pan-fried batter, similar to. But it lost a lot of form integrity. Not entirely clear whether or not that is the intended route for okonomiyaki, though I suppose anything is the intended route. Very free-form food after all. I am not mistaken, I believe the name okonomiyaki is Japanese. As you like it. The food that you prepare as you want it to be. I feel like were I a more confident artist, I probably wouldn't be exactly replicating the patterns in its hair, but thus I'm not so confident an artist. Outer strand of hair lead. Also been meaning to do these tarot streams a bit more frequently. Hello, Darkfire. Welcome. Doing well. Don't know that I've seen you around before. I feel I might have. Your name sounds somewhat familiar. I know there is someone here who has fire in their name. Odd for... you mean Kojiro? Not Kanjiro? But yes, that is probably where I recognize the name from. Yes, I do have a viewer that also has fire in their name, but I know it wasn't Darkfire. It sounded a bit familiar, and I wasn't sure what source specifically it was familiar from. Yes, as you are here from Kojiro, I suppose I could explain a little bit what I'm working on. See it up in the top right a bit more. But I'm currently working on drawing VTubers as tarot cards. I'll probably do Kojiro as one, but he hasn't actually specifically asked for any yet, so... my art isn't particularly the best. I can pull up a couple examples of what I've previously done. But I always find that my art looks the best when it is a sketch, rather than when I've actually completed it. Oh, I did forget about this one. This is art that I made for Kojiro. This is actually one of my better works. I did this for Koji. It's not actually representative of my traditional style, I suppose. I feel like that is one of my better ones. Let's see. Here is the first card that I finished, which is myself as the Fool. This is the general level of quality that I can produce. It's not the best, that's for certain. There are far better, but I'm not going to say it's terrible. I have improved a fair bit since I started. I have only been drawing for a short while, so hopefully I can get a fair bit better after that. Also, thanks for the compliment on my voice. Coming from Kojiro's stream, you must be a connoisseur for that sort of thing. I feel as if I'm making his head a bit too big. The curve is matches fairly well with his original. Keep going with it. Do wrong. So I can try and move things around. Remember I did specifically raid Kojiro a little while back because I feel as if our style of content is fairly similar. Thought that my viewers would appreciate his style. Very fortunately, it turned out to be so. I believe Mitz actually, I'm gonna say Mitz, who is in here right now, I believe. Bill may have left. I believe she subscribed to Koji, so I'm doing my job. Also, the head was far too large. Thank you. Good, on the I feel as if most people try and be somewhat unique as a VTuber. Most of the people that are, I suppose, standard feels kind of a rude way to put it, but everyone really has their own. Section of hair is proving a bit troublesome. Probably I narrow down that awareness curves upward. Also afraid that a large portion of my drawing comes from using other people's design. I realize stop that face far too early. Goes out all the way. Rough in high heat. It's definitely an I suppose. But I have a better frame of reference for where the facial features will end up. Other, I guess, shock of hair, sideburn. Because it's more shock than a sideburn. It's actually a pretty rare trait. I think Vtubers have side. I feel as if scale style sideburns should be excluded from a scavenger hunt. I can think of a few that have scales. Look similar to burn. Just not a very anime trait, I suppose. Just now I was trying to mentally flip that so that I could figure out how to draw it on the other side. Well, I realized I just have a reference image further off to the right. I move my head to look. Paramount. Oh, and also since you're new to the art stream, Darkfire, and anyone else who may be lurking in chat who isn't aware, my computer only has 4 USB ports. The one that's normally occupied by my camera is currently being by my drawing pad, so that is why I'm not moving right now. Can't have a breathing loop set up so that it's not a still JPEG. Yes, I do have a, I am fully rigged, so to worry yourself. I feel as if a majority of VTubers right now are still unrigged, so it's probably not too entirely shocking to see a mostly still figure in the corner of the screen at this point. I was a madman who... Yeah. I do wish I had known that before I started I was a madman and pull out and started with a fully rigged avatar. Without actually dipping my toes in the water to see what it was actually like. Fortunately, I found some modicum of success. If I had known that I could do just as well with a simple PNG, I probably would have held off for a little while longer. He has a very high ponytail. He keeps it up. Close down all programs that could be giving me notifications right now. Because of my... Oh, never mind. Suppose I'll have to deal with that one. Because in order to properly allow my notifications to work, I have to enable desktop sound. I normally have disabled drawings. I think I've just drawn the hair too large and shrink down. To look ridiculous. Somebody else I'm drawing after all. A lot more pressure than drawing myself. I don't have too many compunctions about erasing what I've done. I don't necessarily have any time limit. This is a self-imposed sort of drawing. Ashin simply volunteered for the position of being a, I suppose, guinea pig. I was wondering why all of my drawings appeared so spotty. It's because I've been on the pencil tool. Because that's not necessarily a negative. This isn't the final product. Getting my failed sketch out of the way. Yes, I did a little while ago. Game was it I played? I played some Jackbox parties in collaboration. We're all drawing games. It is fairly difficult to deal with a time limit. Your improvisational art skills aren't very strong. Fair. I definitely wouldn't often up. But I have been enjoying drawing quite a lot. As long as fun. Very easy to just draw, because I'm not really... I know I'm not competing with anyone quality-wise. Very easy to just have fun drawing rather than worrying about actually delivering a high-quality final product. I've unfortunately cut off a portion of his hair to the side. I mean, there's no way to get better without practicing. Yes, I started drawing just with a mouse, my early drawings. But the quality is not the best for certain. See, I can actually show a couple of examples of my early drawing. I think there's only 2 of them that I did before I bought this tablet. The first one was probably one of the most foolish things I've attempted, which was a 5-person drawing of all of Hollow-Myth with randomly generated poses, using no references. I'm not entirely sure how I managed that. This is the kind of stuff that you can do with just a mouse. But I've definitely improved since that point, and having a tablet helps out quite a lot. As long as you try, you can accomplish a fair amount. And the tablet that I'm using right now is actually very cheap. It's only around $50, whereas high-end tablets can run you in the market of 1,000. I tend to try and operate on a budget whenever possible. This was very affordable, so if you would like a tablet recommendation, this one has been doing fairly well for me. Don't know that I actually have the stats of it posted anyway. But I can let you know if you're interested. Been having quite a lot of fun with. Yeah. Budgets are fairly important to stick to. I'm in a fairly fortunate living position right now where I had a fair amount of disposable income, which was how I managed to get myself fully rigged before debut, but as of now I am now back on the far leaner side in terms of finances. A lot more frugal. The main reason why I haven't actually commissioned any artwork. Unlike most other VTubers, I simply don't have the funding at this point in time. Make that sort of investment. Also has long hair on the back of his head, mostly obscured testing those. See, I just have a single piece of commissioned artwork for myself, which is what I use for schedule layout. That's primarily because it was a mission that I made from a fellow Vtuber. It was mostly because opening commissions because they did it, and I'd like to help them. Felt like it was a good chance to get some commissioned artwork that I had been for a while. Very nice. High quality. It was by Noemi Hinagami. A crossroads. I think that's actually the hair done. Feel that? Parts side of the I think I drew the neck too long in the original. A little bit. I think we'll do this sketch on multiple layers. And just be the head sketch. And the body. And to make this a bit easier on myself, I will make the head a bit transparent. Bit less interference on where the body lines should go. This arm is practically verbatim how Ao's own reference drawing has it. Helpful. Very wide. It's collared sleeves, wide collared sleeves. I think that's probably correct terminology. Probably a bit sketch. Wrist fashion. Where I'm actually going to be positioning it. Thumb. X. Perhaps that's too severe of a hook there. Seeing pixels on drawings make me feel constrained. by the physical surface. Fine. Something that I've also discovered from working with these tarot cards is that the anatomy isn't always the most accurate. However, hand is a guideline. For the most part, at the very least. Too close to the X fit. Never mind, the hand on the tarot card is useless. Start at the far end. Okay, perhaps I don't go detailed on the hand just yet. Get the shape of it. I have a reference book where I can check to make sure that I have the detailings of the hand correct. Now, waist, slope. I'm actually just going to follow the line of for this. Don't need to get the anatomy correct for this sketch. Details of his clothes are quite something, that's for certain. Very ornate. Going to be honest, I'm not looking forward to rendering. Going to be a bit of a nightmare. Practice, I suppose, though. Bit too high on the collar there. Originally, his hair is actually covering a fair amount. Bit difficult to tell where things begin. Very, well, not very, but relatively similar to my own collar. Just go in and I had had there originally shoulder, but I suppose that was also before I decided that I would draw the clothing on this sketch layer as well. Interestingly, this arm is lifted. I actually have to try to do something a little bit original. I suppose I could just draw, skewer it. Also, that side got far too wide with. Put up a bit earlier. There we go. Split in them. All the way back up to the shoulder. To the palindrome. Ah. Very high difficulty sketch right now. All right. Goes sash. Okay, good next step. I complete this side, of course. I think oh no, I'm looking at... Perhaps I should make the head sketch disappear. Because the hair was throwing me off, the lines of the hair. Right. So. Trying to add depth to it later, but just now that is sketch. That looks to be a bit more down. Fortunate, one of the most detailed and difficult to look portions of this sash is obscured by the table. Both helpful and actually a bit disappointing. I didn't mean that entirely in sarcasm. straight up. Okay, I need back momentarily. I can figure out where I actually put the shoulder. Very different from everything else. Here's the other line. Head go away again. Again. Oh, he's gonna burn his sleeve. Fortunate. Okay, figuring out how this sleeve is going to obey gravity is going to be a bit difficult. Positions. Get the actual arm drawn in. Follow the clothes fairly close. Booting bump there. Idiot. That is generally where and be shaped, as well as sleeve. Yes, his sleeve is, wonder if I should try and transfer this into a bit of a visual joke if I can. Have his sleeve pinned up or perhaps actively on fire. I don't know if that's too malicious though. I think I'll pin it up a little. I'm going to see if this is actually something capable of doing. Represent. I curve it back on it. Actually, a bit easier than I thought it would be. There we are. It looks like he is. I'll just put it like a binding heat. But it looks like it's pinned out of the way of the candle. Find arm. And close the other side of the. Yeah. Arm is successfully pinned out of the way. To create just the slightest amount of originality for the tarot deck. Really quite pleased with that. bring the head back. So. Next thing on the agenda, this little ruffly skirt. Also, his legs are too low down looking at this drawing. Waist is here, not all the way down here. I think actually at this point the original sketch has outlived its usefulness. I can just disappear it. The microphone a little bit. I apologize if that has made any noise or disturbance. But ruffle goes around there. Legs behind. I think I've actually made his petticoat a bit too wide. Be a bit narrower. Especially at the top here. It can get about as wide as it was at the base, just so long as I narrow it up at the top. That's a bit better as well at having his legs come out from somewhere that actually makes sense. I want to give him chicken legs. Those are looking a bit too thin. Because it's not terrible. Could stand to be a bit wider. Bend doesn't look quite right. Isn't terribly important, as I'm going to hide everything behind this foliage anyways. And the other leg is practically completely obscured by the table legs, so I'm fairly safe on that front. Draw everything behind leg of that table just because I want everything to be in the correct place. Meets up there. Back end. Their leg. It'll be mostly hidden. There's a little bit of leg that sticks out on the side of the table leg, so good thing that I attempted the drawing. Is, I think the sketch generally done. There are some areas with a bit of overlap. Really satisfied with how the sketch turned out. Normally this is where I would stop for the day, because rendering takes a very large amount of energy I don't necessarily have after finishing a sketch. But I am thinking I might just start a second sketch. Have a fair amount of time. I also didn't stream one day, so I don't want to end it this short. So I will save this project. Start a second one. See, I'll look at the list of tarot cards and pick out a simple pose. Certainly hope I remembered how to spell his name. Written on his reference. Good. Worried for a moment there. So. Take. Frame. Did I accidentally put anything on the frame layer? Didn't. Fantastic. Yes. A copy of this frame. Close out of that now. Don't need the U. Bring on a new tarot. Alright, so. We have one chat, right? Wonder if any of the ones who volunteered for this. I doubt it. Let's see, if I continue going on, fairly certain the next person on my list would be the Chariot, who is G-Sock. Chariot has a bunch of geometry to go with it, and I don't really want to draw two sphinxes either. Temperance? Temperance is simple enough. Strength has an entire lion in it. If I have the energy for that. The tower might not be too difficult. Who's got the tower? I believe it's, S. Ends with an A, that for certain. I gotta find that post again. Aster, yeah, that is it. But he's currently in the middle of a model reveal, so I don't actually have a reference to go off of. I will go with Temperance then. Drawing Aqua. I think I already have a reference of Aqua download, so I don't actually have to go through any extra steps of bringing it up. Did already draw Aqua once before. See. Reference picture folder I have. You. something I've not seen before. Border sort of just warped there. Trying to move illustration to the first one. I can just rename them. I do realize I was working on that previous project with actually no saves whatsoever. So if I had had a failure at any point during that, I would have been very despondent, for certain. So, awkward. Thing up their appropriate levels. I think I decided I was going to keep Aqua in their clothing. Perhaps I'll add the triangle patch on, because the triangle is important to the lore of the Arcana, I suppose. And once again, going back to the meaning behind Arcana. The angel depicted in this is holding 2 cups. May have something to do with the 2 of cups that is part of the tarot deck, the minor arcana. Just get basic. I think I might ask Aqua what kind of wings they want, because I could go with the standard angel wings, or I could go with more demonic wings, as Aqua is an earth demon. Suppose I'll have to ask. And their skin tones are actually very similar as well. Then go a very simple sketch. Get all of the elements in proper place. Bother too much about correct shapes or anything like that. Okay, this is actually going to be a interesting perspective thing to work on, because the arms are ever so slightly reaching forwards. Both of them are. This is actually going to be pretty tricky to draw. Perhaps I'll just do the rough sketch, or at the very least I'll go until I reach the 2-hour mark. That hand is actually just reaching directly forwards. Just add the wrist break in, as I forgot to do that for the other hand. Or the dividing line of the wrist break, that sounds ominous, I suppose. I'll just represent that with a line. Oh, I can already tell this is going to cause me a great amount of grief trying to properly represent. feet are fairly straight down. So this leg is or I suppose this foot is facing off to the side. One foot this way. The other one is at an angle on the ground, going into the water, dipping their toes. Probably a warm day. Just add the wing now and decide what they will look like later. I believe Aqua described themselves as a earth demon, so perhaps the question of wings is relevant. But the wings are a fairly integral part of the Temperance card. Those wings definitely don't look the best, but they'll do for now. Is the roughest of the rough sketches. Actually rough in the background a little bit. There's a mountain here. This looks like it could possibly be the sun. Perhaps this card relates to the Sun Tarot card in some way. I do find it very interesting looking. Meanings behind tarot cards and how they all relate to one another. I wonder if this card actually has anything to do with the Fool. Well, because of the winding path. The Fool's card represents a journey. And this is actually just a rock in the foreground, part of the path. Path disappears in rock. Drop big spiky ball that may or may not be the sun. Other side. All grass. Pond. Really nothing in the top portion of the drawing as well. Fairly empty up there. My pen tip wasn't working there. Wondering if that was a pen tip or my driver's being weird again. The biggest fan tablet. Perhaps I should have gotten a reference image that was a bit more flat on. I had with Laotian. It'll do for now. This is actually a fairly standard haircut for dual-horned demons that have long bangs, I've noticed, where there's the two gaps either side of it, or hair on either side. Utendoji has it. A lot of characters do. Interestingly, character without horns that is one of my favorite Vtuber. You know, my Inane. That's because that two of her, I guess, hair strands turn into pseudo-tentacles. What causes the gap to form. So, I suppose starting with the jawline, probably the best thing to do here. Face is fairly circular. But just go with rough outlines of hair. I don't need to get in all the detailed sketch. After the fact. Bangs also come draw in ovals for eyes, spot for a nose, for a mouth. Shape is fine for now. I believe their hair is fairly symmetrical, so I'm going to treat it as such. It's down to shoulder length. A bit longer than I thought. Or that I specifically remember, I suppose. Let's get back line. Looking. Bow is suggest the bow. Be perfect, and this is still just a sketch. Collar, very wide collar. Baggy clothes. Very easy to draw, thankfully. Nothing like the existential nightmare that was Ocean's very fancy attire. Okay, I think using the sleeves to change the perspective also helps. In fact, I think I should do it a bit more extreme than I did. This. Yes, okay, that's a lot better. Now I have to match that with the hand that comes out. Alright, you know what? Save that for another day. Because of the bagginess of the clothes, make these the waist and hips a bit less accentuated. Hidden. A bit less forward. It's still perspective shifted. That is the correct term. Sleeves should be there you go. Hand of a true artist. I think it was drawn by it. Probably some age range where a hand that shape makes sense. Go with 5. 5 years old seems the point at which someone would draw a hand. I made that leg gap uncomfortably wide. I think any living being could survive with a leg gap like that. A bit better. Simply do not understand how anatomy works, it seems. Also the line of the doing that. Switching instead of eraser. Jacket, I suppose the top comes down fairly low. Baggy. Much wider than what I had originally drawn. There we are. About I was looking. A little bit of a bend at the knee. I think that's where the knee should be, at the very least. I do always have the convenient excuse of myself not having legs or feet, so just run with that and say that I am unaware of how they traditionally. Or right in re-rendering pages. Fairly good. Oh. The slightly more detailed sketch has now drawn me to just about the 2-hour mark. I've done it. On the same layer. Oh well. I suppose before I leave I'll just separate them. Too big of a deal. A bit annoying. Be dealt with. Careful here. Okay. That's probably going to mess a couple of things up, but at least it's on its own. Cut off the of this tassel? Don't think I've ever actually noticed that before. Just from drawing. Rid of the little bits of a jacket that got cut off in the process. Right. This is the general sketch for the Temperance. It took me a lot less time than Laotian's, that's for certain. I've got around... I'd say this is about halfway done with both of the tarot cards that I worked on today. But I had a fair amount of fun. I'm glad for the people who stopped by, chatted. Nice to see Mitspun in here at the beginning, and good having Darkfire in for the time that they were chatting as well. Of course, thanks to people who are lurking, and I'm still not entirely sure how to tell whether or not the viewer count is entirely accurate. Because it says 3, but I don't know whether or not I am counted as a viewer or if my bot is counted as a viewer. But as it stands, fairly pleasant stream. A lot of progress was made. But that is it for me, and I will be moving over to the end card, and I suppose I'll raid someone. 3 is a respectable enough number to raid with, I suppose.